Hey guys, welcome back to this edition of Easy Street Garage. We're here in the garage, as you can see today, because actually 1 year ago, well, a little over a year ago, we started this channel with a simple iPhone and an oil change on this GT350. But we're going to shoot a new video on how to change oil in your Shelby GT350. And I know a lot of you guys, you go to the dealer, many of you aren't happy with your dealer and the job they do, but this is not a difficult task. And today we're going to break down the key elements of changing your oil in the GT350. So guys, don't be chicken. Let's start changing some oil. So going back to the components that I've got here, guys, I always buy a new oil plug. I know these plugs are reusable according to Ford and some other enthusiasts, but you know what? For $8 or whatever it costs me for a plastic oil plug with a O-ring on it, is I stick with the OE oil filter, the Motorcraft oil filter. And the reason for that is because I don't want to void my warranty, number one. And number two, it's a good product. You have a couple things you need to pay attention to on the oil filter, and we'll talk about that during the oil change. However, let's get to it. There's an O-ring in here. This flat O-ring has to be lubricated when reinstalled on the car. We're going to show you that. The other thing we're going to do in this video, so pay attention, stay with us, is I'm going to attempt to cut this oil filter apart. I've seen some other guys do it, and I think it looks pretty straightforward, but we're going to get into that, and I'll guarantee you that. We're going to talk about the specs. We're going to talk about a special tool that I have machined here at Easy Street Garage that we use to get this oil filter on and off. So, OE oil filter, going with the Motorcraft, all right? However, let's talk about oil. I have switched. Last year, I went to Amsoil, and let me talk about some of the tech details here about changing your oil and going to Amsoil, okay? I was using the Motorcraft synthetic, consuming about 1 quart of oil every 1,000 miles on this car. And I know a lot of you have some oil consumption concerns, much more than that. However, that is within spec according to Ford Performance, and I'm okay with that because, guys, this is a performance engine. The Voodoo engine is basically built for those high RPMs, high performance. And here's what happens, by the way. When they build this motor, listen, these things are built fairly loose coming out of the factory for a couple reasons. Number one, it does heat up, it does expand. The motor is a performance motor, it's got to do that. With that said, these engines will consume oil. All the other performance engines that you see out there, guys, they consume some oil. So you really need to keep your eye on that oil level every time you get into one of your GT350s. I don't care if it's the Gen 2 or like this one, 26. This is actually a 2017 with a 2016 Voodoo motor in it because I don't have the canister. I still have the filter, and I'm not going to switch it over. But you got to check your oil level. Continually check it. I can't stress that enough. Now, I switched over to Amsoil last year as just an experiment because of a couple reasons. Since these engines run so hot, I think that much of that oil consumption is vaporized at the heads. You don't see these things burning oil out the tailpipe, all right? So most of that is consumed at the head without, there is some consumption going back into the intake. It's getting burned up. I have the oil separator, so I catch that before it gets to the intake. So I would recommend that. However, at those elevated temperatures, your Voodoo engine is vaporizing oil. Now, I went to Amsoil for one specific reason, and that is that it has a higher flash point than the Motorcraft engine oil, all right? So my thinking was, if that was the case, then I would consume less oil vaporized at the head and going out the tailpipe. So my experiment last year was to change the oil. I had a count prior with the Motorcraft, and that was 1 quart every 1,000 miles roughly I was using. By going to Amsoil, I was able to cut that consumption down by half. So, at the same mileage interval, I checked my Voodoo engine, and sure enough, I had only used actually less than a half a quart of oil. Topped it off at the same interval again in my test, same scenario. So overall, I will tell you that you're going to consume half of what you did prior using the Motorcraft oil. Higher flash point than the Motorcraft, simply put. However, check your oil and check it often. So Amsoil is a go for me. Now let's talk about cost. It cost me to go over to Beachmont Ford, and Colin Truex and his performance group would change my oil. Very, very satisfied with their service and the job. Okay, I like the guys, I like the people. So shout out to Charlie Watson and Jeff Black, Colin Truex. All right, so here's the deal. The cost of the oil shipped from Amsoil, by the way, got here in 2 days, is $122 for a case, all right? And the case is actually 12 quarts. Your GT350 will take 10. I just order a case, and I've been accumulating some back here, but I always carry a quart with me. $122. The oil plug was about $8, and golly, I think I was all in on the oil filter at, was it maybe 15 bucks? Okay. An oil change for me on this car at the dealership, pull in, pull out, all done, was about $145, okay? I'm not saving any money doing this myself. The Amsoil is more expensive than the Motorcraft, but you would expect it to be, and I'm okay with that. Again, going back to the whole beginning of the story here, I'm doing this for my own edification because I enjoy tinkering with my Shelby GT350, as you have seen from other videos. So guys, listen, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sample of this oil midstream while it's coming out. I'm going to take that sample, I'm going to box it up, and I'm going to send it out to Indiana to Blackstone Laboratories. Blackstone Laboratories is going to analyze the oil. I'm going to see what is in the oil, and that will come in a separate video in another couple weeks. So guys, listen, stay tuned. We're going to give you some helpful hints if you're going to change your own oil. Luckily, I have a lift. You may be doing this on a creeper on your back, but it doesn't change much from what you're going to see. So stay tuned. Okay guys, we got some heat in that motor. We did a cold start, let it run a little bit. So we're gonna get this thing. Okay guys, we're here under the car. We've got our oil pan here. We're gonna loosen up our plastic drain plug. But what I'm going to attempt to do is I want to capture a sample of that oil about midstream. All right. How about that? Everything's worked so far. We got our sample. Believe it or not, we had very little spillage on that round, so I feel pretty happy. There's our sample. T30 star bit, and so we're going to remove the access cover. I also utilized this mat, this absorbent mat. I did this, I got very little up in the pan, so you know, again, it's a matter of just getting creative, trying to find a way. Okay guys, before we go up and start pulling off that oil filter, I just do want to say that I'm one of those guys. Yep, I'm one of those guys. So the socket that I basically turned down for this is this socket right here, fits onto the wrench. The problem is if you go with a standard socket up in this hole and you try to get all that clearance that you need under there, you're not going to get it with a standard socket, okay? Not much room under here, and so there's our filter. You could see she's loose. I've put my absorbing pad across this brace to absorb any you know, residual oils. We'll clean up around the edges, but you know, last time I did this, guys, we were safe, we were good. So again, there she is, she's coming out. Okay guys, while I'm letting that drain a little bit over on the oil filter side, we're going to put our plug back in below, but that's it. That oil filter, she tight, and that's all it takes, man. Isn't that crazy? But you know, this thing's pretty clean. That's all I have. You could see the oil that it captured. Okay guys, I don't know how many of you do this. I've seen other people do it. I did it on my last oil change. I know you need to lube the O-ring because these things can pinch out and get really weird on us. But how many people put oil in their oil filter prior to assembling it onto the car? Okay guys, this is where it gets a little bit tight with a torque wrench up in there, right? So what I was sharing with you earlier was I made this special socket in the machine shop here, and we are going to get up in here. We're going to go at basically 17 pound-feet of torque, which is what I'm set up for. All right, we're there. So that's 17 pound-feet of torque on that thing. We're tight. I feel good about this install up here. So we're going to get a final cleanup on that element. We're going to put our cover back on. We're going to go to the top side of this motor, and we're going to fill this bad boy up with some Amsoil 5W50. Okay guys, lifts down. We're going to go ahead and start feeding the beast with this beautiful golden Amsoil 5W50. Here we go. Oh yeah, look at that. Sweetness. All you guys that own GT350s with these voodoo engines here, checking the oil on this thing is an absolute project. One more shot at checking the oil here before we button this bad boy up, and she looks pretty good. Right on the money. Right on the money. So, the question comes often from various people that, oh my goodness, that car's under warranty, that's a special motor, you're going to void your warranty if you change your own oil. And no, you won't. I used an OE oil filter or oil pan plug, so I'm good there. I used the OE filter, so I didn't void the warranty in that way. But I did use, as we talked about, Amsoil. and most people would say, you're done, you're toast. Mass-Sussen Moss Act, okay? And what that does is that legal precedence allows us users, providing we stick with the manufacturer's specifications on the oil viscosity, which I did, then I'm covered under the Mass-Sussen Moss Act. The O-ring looks really good. When you get all the way around, you should get yourself in a position where the top of this oil filter, or if you would, I guess, yeah, the top of the oil filter then comes off. So you've got that. The other piece of the puzzle is then, of course, there's some O-ring material in here. And I'm just kind of inspecting this right now. I'm going to go around and look at it just to see if I see any debris in here. I want to cut it open. And I want to open up, and I'm being very careful, guys. This is pretty sharp. So what I want to do is just want to cut a section of this thing open so I can, you know, the perforated paper that's underneath here is what I want to get to. Hey, that's kind of cool, man. Look at that. I got a cross section of the filter. I'm just going to rip that out of there. And then I'm going to pull my filter apart. And I am looking for anything in here that might resemble, I think that's part of my little cutting piece here, but I'm looking in here, and I know a couple guys told me to put this in the vise and squeeze out all the oil and see if you see anything in there. Just in case you're curious about your motor and think you might have something going on, you could do this as well. It doesn't take any special tools. So I'm gonna get closer to the camera. So here we are. We're gonna spread this thing apart. And you know, the question is there any metallic in here? And I gotta be honest with you, I don't see anything. I see maybe a couple little specks here and there. You know what I mean? But, you know, a couple little tiny things I see, like right in here, I see a little bit. I don't know if you can see any glitter from that, but that's nothing. Thanks for tuning in to this edition, guys, of Easy Street Garage. And this oil change on the GT350, we'll be back to you soon with a full analysis of what's going on in my oil, if anything. But until next time, this is Easy Street Garage. It's been a year since the last oil change, which launched this channel. I've had a lot of fun with you guys, but I like subscribers. That's why we do this. Please subscribe, pass it along, share this channel with your friends so they subscribe. Hit the notification bell for updates in the future. We got a lot of stuff coming. And until then, right there, subscribe, please. This is Easy Street Garage, and we're out.